I'm Carla Grant, 32, and I've led a major fashion division at Everstyle for years, never once boasting, especially not to my sister. Her sharp words had sliced through me since childhood, dismissing my business acumen as number crunching, while she crowned herself a creative visionary. That Thanksgiving in Indianapolis, the air buzzed with her arrogance. She sauntered into our family dinner, poised to brag about her booming fashion label. I sat still, clutching a secret that would shatter her facade. My team at Everstyle had just acquired her failing brand, a truth I held like a hidden blade. Her jabs about my lack of flair were about to crash. When Dad spoke, the room went dead silent. Her smug grin vanished and I felt a spark of triumph. How did we get here? Years of her taunts, my quiet hustle, and a deal that flipped the script. Stick around to see her empire fall and what unfolded when the truth hit. Drop your city in the comments and hit subscribe if you've ever outplayed a family skeptic. Growing up in Indianapolis with Adrienne felt like living under a spotlight that never shone on me. She discovered her knack for sketching outfits early, turning scrap paper into dresses that looked ready for runways. At family cookouts in our backyard, relatives crowded around her drawings. Dad Joseph, who managed finances at a local bank, would beam and say her ideas could change the industry. Mom Gail, teaching English at the high school, framed those sketches on the walls, calling Adrienne our little artist. I preferred figuring out how trends worked, why certain clothes sold out, or how stores priced items. I'd reorganize my allowance to buy fabrics and resell custom accessories to neighbors. "That's smart," Carla Dad Joseph once said, but then he'd turn back to Adrienne's latest creation. Mom Gail nodded along, impressed by the colors and patterns. Adrienne caught on quick. "Carla's just playing store," she'd tease during dinner, making everyone chuckle. Her tone made it clear my efforts were cute, hers were genius. I swallowed the sting, focusing on school projects that earned quiet praise from teachers. The gap widened in middle school. Adrienne entered design contests, winning ribbons that filled a shelf. Our parents attended every award ceremony, cheering loudest for her. I joined the business club, pitching ideas for a school vending machine that raised funds for supplies. Practical Mom Gail called it, but Adrienne smirked. Boring logistics, no flair. Grandma Iris. Mom Gail's mother, who ran a small boutique downtown for decades, saw things differently. On weekends, when she'd babysit, she'd let me tag along to her shop. "Fashion isn't only sewing," Carla Grandma Iris told me while restocking shelves. "It's knowing what customers want before they do, balancing costs, spotting opportunities." She'd hand me the ledger, teaching me to track sales. Her encouragement stuck. I started seeing patterns in what sold and why. High school amplified everything. Adrienne's portfolio got her into advanced art classes. Scouts from fashion programs visited. Family dinners revolved around her sketches. Dad Joseph discussed potential scholarships. Mom Gail planned celebration parties. My role in debate team, arguing market strategies for hypothetical brands, got a quick good job before talk shifted back. Adrienne's jabs sharpened. "Why bother with numbers when you could create?" she'd say, waving a new design. I'd retreat to my room, researching online about supply chains and consumer behavior. Grandma Iris noticed during holidays. "Don't let her dim you," she whispered one evening, slipping me a book on retail management. "Your mind builds empires. She draws pictures." The favoritism wasn't intentional, but it hurt. Parents beamed at Adrienne's trophies. My report cards with straight A's in economics earned polite acknowledgement. At barbecues, uncles asked Adrienne about inspirations. Aunts complimented my helpful nature when I organized games. College decisions highlighted it. Adrienne got accepted to a top design institute in Chicago on partial scholarship. Cheers echoed through the house. I chose Indiana University for business, focusing on fashion merchandising. "Solid path," Dad Joseph said, but Adrienne laughed. "Safe choice. No risk, no reward." Mom Gail hugged her tighter that night. I threw myself into studies interning at local stores to learn inventory systems. Adrienne partied in Chicago, posting glamorous updates. Family visits became her showcase. My updates got brief nods. Grandma Iris drove to campus, once treating me to coffee. "They're dazzled by sparkle," she said. "But foundations hold the building." Her words fueled late nights analyzing case studies on brand failures due to poor planning, exactly Adrienne's blind spot. The pattern set early, Adrienne chased applause I built quietly. Her confidence grew with every like on social media prototypes. Mine came from mastering spreadsheets that predicted hits. Relatives saw her as the star. I became the reliable one. Grandma Iris remained my anchor, sending articles on women leaders in retail. "One day they'll see," she'd say. I believed her, channeling Herd into Drive. Adrienne's teases echoed, but I tuned them out, laying bricks for something lasting. After graduating from Indiana University with a business degree, I landed a junior analyst role at Everstyle, a leading fashion retailer in Indianapolis. My first desk was a cubicle buried in the supply chain department, surrounded by spreadsheets and shipment logs. I loved it. While classmates chased corporate glamour, I studied vendor contracts and delivery schedules. Within a year, I streamlined sourcing for seasonal lines, slashing delays by 12%. My manager nodded approval, handing me more projects. Promotion to supply chain coordinator came at 24. I negotiated with overseas manufacturers, securing cotton blends at lower rates without sacrificing quality. Revenue ticked up 5%. My team lead, Patricia Cole, a sharp veteran with 20 years in retail, pulled me aside. "You've got instincts, Carla. Keep pushing." Her words carried weight, unlike the family dinners where my sister's voice drowned mine. My sister kept up her digs. At a cousin's engagement party, she sipped wine and scoffed. "Still juggling invoices?" "That's cute, Carla." Guests chuckled. Dad asked her about runway trends. I smiled tightly, mentioning a supplier deal that saved $500,000. Nobody blinked. I turned back to my plate, resolve hardening. By 26, I was logistics manager, overseeing a team of 10. We revamped warehouse protocols, cutting shipping costs by 8%. Patricia praised my report at a board meeting, calling it game-changing. Everstyle's CEO scribbled a note. I framed it privately. "Family barbecues." My sister dominated, waving her phone. "Just signed a boutique deal," she bragged, then glanced at me. "Carla's probably organizing boxes." Mom changed the subject to her latest fabric haul. I enrolled in an evening MBA program specializing in strategic management. Nights blurred into case studies on market forecasting. My thesis on optimizing fashion supply chains earned a university award. Patricia sent flowers. My parents didn't know. At a holiday gathering, my sister smirked over turkey. Grad school. For what more paperwork? Dad laughed, asking her about a magazine feature. I sipped coffee, mentally reviewing my next project. At 28, I pitched a digital inventory system to Everstyle's executives. It tracked trends in real time, boosting stock efficiency by 15%. The board approved a pilot. Sales soared. Patricia clapped me on the back. "You're rewriting how we move product." My bonus check bought a used car. I told no one at home. My sister's voice echoed at a family picnic. "Carla's job sounds so clerical." Aunt Diane nodded along. I excused myself to call Owen Pratt, my boyfriend, a high school teacher who listened. "You're killing it," he said. "They'll see." Director of Strategic Development came at 30. I led global expansion, opening stores in Chicago and Denver. My forecasts drove a 20% revenue jump. Colleagues toasted my promotion. Patricia called me indispensable. I bought a small condo, my first big win. Owen cooked dinner to celebrate, but at Mom's birthday dinner, my sister stole the spotlight. "My label's going national," she boasted, then turned to me. Still crunching numbers, I nodded, letting her bask. My team's next target was already in sight. The pattern held. My sister's taunts landed at every gathering, Christmas, 4th of July, random Sundays. Carla's buried in forms, she'd say, flipping her hair. Dad asked about her pop-up shops. Mom gushed over her sketches. I stayed quiet, channeling energy into work. Patricia noticed my focus. "You don't flaunt it, but you're a force," she said during a performance review. I earned stock options that year, enough to secure my future. Owen framed the certificate. "Your empire's rising." Grandma Iris called weekly, asking about deals, not designs. "You're the backbone," she said after I shared a supplier win. Her shop had closed, but her voice carried the same fire. "They'll eat their words." I laughed, but the sting of being overlooked lingered. Family saw my sister's glitter. I built the machine that kept fashion moving. At 32, I oversaw acquisitions. My desk held reports on distressed brands, each a puzzle to solve. Patricia trusted me to scout targets. "You see what others miss?" she said. I honed that skill daily, proving my worth in boardrooms. Home was another story. My sister's voice still carried her jabs, a constant hum, but I knew my moves were louder. One morning, a file landed on my desk. Labeled Trend Vibe, acquisition target, it hit like a punch. My sister's fashion brand, once a darling of Indianapolis boutiques, was drowning in red ink. I flipped through pages of financials: $2.3 million in debt, unpaid suppliers, and a 40% drop in sales over 2 years. Everstyle, my company, had flagged it for a potential buyout. I leaned back, heart racing. How had her empire fallen so far? I'd heard her boasts just weeks earlier at a family reunion. "Trend Vibes crushing it," my sister declared, holding court by the grill. Dad nodded, impressed by her talk of new designs. Mom asked about storefront plans. I stayed quiet, slicing watermelon, but her confidence gnawed at me. She was hiding this sinking brand, and she played the star, Sophia Lane. My assistant knocked and entered. "You've seen the numbers?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. I nodded, still processing. "They're bleeding cash. Overstocked inventory, no marketing budget, and 3 lawsuits from copycat claims." She slid over a report detailing missed payments to fabric vendors and a failed pop-up launch costing $200,000. "They're months from bankruptcy," Sophia added. Her tone was matter-of-fact, but the weight landed heavy. I stared at the charts. Trend Vibes design sparkled, bold patterns, vibrant cuts, but the business side was a mess. Late deliveries, ignored market trends, and a bloated payroll. Everything my sister mocked as my boring expertise. I'd spent years mastering supply chains, forecasting demand. She'd dismissed it all, yet here was her brand crumbling without it. That night, I couldn't sleep. My sister's voice echoed from a recent Sunday dinner. "I'm pitching to investors next month," she'd bragged, tossing her hair. Mom clapped. Dad offered to proofread her deck. I'd sipped tea, wondering how she spun such lies. Now I knew. She was covering a disaster, parading success to our family, while her books screamed failure. Sophia called me into a meeting the next day. "Acquisition team wants your input," she said, handing me projections. Everstyle saw value: absorb Trend Vibes design, streamline operations, keep its staff. A $1.8 million offer was on the table, generous given the debt. I froze. My sister didn't know I led acquisitions. Would she think I orchestrated this? I confided in Owen over coffee. "Should I warn her?" I asked, stirring sugar absently. He shook his head. "She'd never believe you. Let the process play out." His calm steadied me, but doubt swirled. Helping her could tank my credibility at work. Staying silent felt like a betrayal, yet her years of taunts calling my work clerical stung fresh. Patricia stopped by my office. "Conflict of interest?" she asked, direct as always. I admitted the family tie. "My sister owns Trend Vibe." I didn't know it was this bad. She nodded. "You're too valuable to sit out, but recuse from direct talks. Advise only." I agreed, drafting memos on valuation risks. My input could shape the deal without bias, or so I hoped. Over the next week, my sister's facade continued. She called Mom during a family group chat raving about a major deal coming. Trend Vibes about to scale, she claimed, voice bright. I muted my mic, staring at Sophia's latest update, creditors circling, 2 key retailers pulling out. How could she lie so boldly? I dug deeper into the file. Trend Vibes' social media glittered with curated posts, runway shots, influencer tags, but customer reviews told another story. Late orders, poor quality, one read. Returns piled up unprocessed. Sophia flagged a $500,000 marketing campaign that flopped, targeting the wrong demographic. My sister's vision was a house of cards. The moral tug-of-war grew. Alerting her could save her pride, but risk my job. Everstyle's offer was fair, her team would stay employed, her designs preserved. Yet I pictured her face, learning I'd known. Would she call it sabotage? I wrestled late nights, weighing loyalty against fairness. Owen listened patiently. You're not her keeper, he said. She built this mess. Patricia called for a final review. We move next month, she said. I nodded, heart heavy. My sister's boasts would soon crash against reality. I chose silence, letting the deal proceed. Her lies couldn't outrun the numbers. I knew I had to step back. After disclosing my sister's ownership of Trend Vibe, I handed direct negotiations to Patricia's acquisition team. My role shrank to advisory, reviewing memos suggesting efficiencies, nothing more. Keep it clean, Patricia warned, her voice firm but fair. I nodded, drafting a report on integrating Trend Vibe's designs. The numbers were stark. Everstyle's $1.8 million offer would save 30 jobs and clear $1.2 million in vendor debts. Fair, but my sister wouldn't see it that way. She had no clue I was involved. At a cousin's wedding 2 weeks later, she cornered me by the dessert table. Still pushing pencils at your desk job, she teased, her dress glittering under chandeliers. Guests nearby laughed. Mom smiled from across the room. I shrugged, mentioning a new project launch. Sounds thrilling, she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Dad joined, asking her about a recent fashion show. I stepped away, her words like static in my head. The acquisition moved fast. Sophia updated me daily, contracts drafted, due diligence finalized. Trend Vibe's staff would transition to Everstyle's payroll, their IP folded into our spring line. I reviewed logistics, ensuring seamless stock transfers. Meetings buzzed with strategy Patricia led, I advised from the sidelines. Your restraint's smart, she said after one session. This stays professional. I agreed, but my stomach churned. What would happen when my sister learned the truth? Her taunts didn't stop. At a family barbecue, she waved her phone, showing off a glossy Trend Vibe ad. This is real impact, she said, glancing at me, not shuffling reports. Uncle Vernon nodded. Aunt Diane asked about her next collection. I grilled burgers, biting back a reply. Sophia's latest memo sat in my inbox. Trend Vibe's last retailer had pulled out. My sister's bravado was a ticking clock. Negotiations wrapped in 3 weeks. Everstyle's board approved the deal. My sister signed, spinning it as a strategic merger. Sophia showed me her press release, full of buzzwords, no mention of debt. She's clueless about your role, Sophia said, shaking her head. I stared at the signed contract. Trend Vibe was ours. My team would oversee its rebranding, but I felt no victory. Dread crept in, her reaction loomed like a storm. I confided in Owen over dinner. She'll hate me, I said, pushing pasta around my plate. He reached for my hand. You didn't sink her brand, she did. You're just doing your job. His words grounded me, but not enough. I pictured her face at the signing, all smug confidence. She thought she'd won big, not lost her company to mine. Family gatherings fueled my unease. During a Sunday call, my sister bragged about new partners for Trend Vibe. Big moves, she said, her voice loud through the speaker. Mom cheered. Dad asked about timelines. I stayed mute, my laptop open to acquisition terms. Everstyle would retain her as a consultant for 6 months, a generous clause I'd pushed for. Would she see it as pity? The deal closed quietly. TrendVibe's logo vanished from its website, replaced by Everstyle's branding. Sophia handed me the final report, all assets transferred, staff onboarded. Smooth execution, she said. I forced a smile, but tension coiled tighter. My sister's ignorance wouldn't last. Someone, maybe Dad, maybe a news article, would spill the truth. I tossed at night, replaying her jabs. "You don't have the skills," she'd said years ago, echoed in every smirk. Now her brand was mine, but the win felt hollow. What if she blamed me? I imagined her storming out, family divided. Owen listened as I paced. "You gave her a lifeline," he said. "That's more than she'd do." Still guilt gnawed. Had I stayed too silent, Patricia called me in before the weekend. "Integration starts Monday," she said. "You did well stepping back." I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. My sister's next family appearance would be her last as TrendVibe's CEO. I braced for the fallout, heart heavy with what was coming. As Thanksgiving neared in Indianapolis, a knot tightened in my chest. The acquisition of TrendVibe was done, sealed in contracts my sister didn't know I'd touched. I pictured her striding into Mom's dining room, ready to sling another jab about my desk job. Her taunts had sharpened over the years, and with the truth about her company now owned by Everstyle, I braced for a storm. Would she lash out when it came out? Would family take sides? I poured my fears out to Owen one evening, stirring soup in his small apartment. "She'll mock me again in front of everyone," I said, voice low. He set down his glass, eyes steady. "Stay calm, Carla. Don't tip your hand early. Let her talk." His advice made sense, but my pulse raced at the thought of her smug grin. I nodded, stirring harder, determined to hold my tongue. Mom was in full planning mode. She called daily, detailing her menu: roasted turkey, cornbread, stuffing, cranberry relish. "I'm baking 2 pies," Gail announced, her voice bright through the phone. "Your sister's bringing her famous pecan tart." I forced a smile she couldn't see. Of course my sister would play the star, her dessert a spotlight grab. I offered to bring wine, but my mind was elsewhere, on the secret I carried. Dad's call came next, his tone quieter than usual. "You coming early to help?" Joseph asked, pausing as if weighing his words. "Big night ahead." Something in his voice felt off, like he knew more than he let on. Had he heard about TrendVibe? I brushed it off, confirming I'd arrive by noon. His silence lingered, adding to my unease. My sister's confidence didn't waver. She texted the family group chat, boasting about a game-changing season for TrendVibe. "Wait till you hear my news." Her message read, paired with a winking emoji. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering. She was clueless, acting like she'd signed a victory, not a surrender. I typed a neutral reply, heart sinking further. Owen caught me pacing one night. "You're spiraling," he said, pulling me to the couch. "What's the worst she can do?" Another jab, I sighed. "It's not just her. It's Mom cheering, Dad nodding, everyone buying her act." He squeezed my hand. "You've got the truth. That's enough." I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed. Keeping silent felt like betraying her, yet speaking up could ruin the holiday. Mom's preparations ramped up. She emailed a seating chart, placing my sister near the head of the table, me at the far end. "You don't mind, right?" Gail asked during a quick call. I said no, but the placement stung, a visual of my family's priorities. I helped her shop for ingredients the next day, hauling bags of sweet potatoes while she chatted about my sister's latest photo shoot. "She's so driven," Mom said. I nodded, loading the car, my secret heavier with each step. Dad's behavior kept nagging me. At a family coffee meetup, he sat quietly sipping his latte while my sister rambled about new markets for TrendVibe. "Big things coming," she said, tossing her scarf for effect. Joseph's eyes flicked to me, holding a beat too long. Did he know I changed the subject to football? But his gaze stayed heavy. Grandma Iris, visiting that weekend, noticed too. "Your dad's sharper than he looks," she whispered, patting my arm. Her words fueled my worry. I rehearsed responses in my head, preparing for my sister's inevitable dig. Still filing papers, she'd likely say, smirking over pie. I practiced a shrug, a smile, anything to deflect. Owen coached me through it one morning over breakfast. You're stronger than her noise, he said, flipping pancakes. I clung to his calm, but my nerves jittered. The truth was a ticking bomb, and I wasn't ready for the blast. Mom sent a final text, tables set, bring your appetite. I stared at it, picturing the spread china plates, flickering candles, my sister center stage. I chose silence, locking my role in the acquisition away. But as the day loomed, unease grew. Dad's quiet demeanor, my sister's boasts, the family's blind admiration, all of it pressed against me. I wasn't sure I could stay composed. Thanksgiving evening felt deceptively calm. Mom's dining room glowed with candlelight, the table laden with turkey stuffing and her signature cranberry relish. My sister sat near the head, her pecan tart displayed like a trophy. I took my seat at the far end, the seating chart a silent jab. Family chatter filled the air, Uncle Vernon debating football, Aunt Diane praising the pie. I sipped wine, my nerves taut, waiting for the inevitable. My sister didn't disappoint. Halfway through the meal, she raised her glass, voice bright. Trend Vibe's about to dominate, she declared, eyes sweeping the room. New contracts, big retailers. I'm taking it to the next level. Mom clapped, delighted. That's my girl, she said. Dad's fork paused, his face unreadable. Then she turned to me, smirk, sharp. Carla, you wouldn't get it. You don't have the skills to run a company. The table chuckled. My chest tightened. I forced a nod, gripping my napkin. Dad cleared his throat. Actually, Joseph said, his voice cutting through the hum, Everstyle acquired Trend Vibe last month. Silence crashed down. My sister's smile froze. Carla's team led it, he added, eyes locking on hers. The room stilled, forks stopped, breaths held. Mom's jaw dropped. Uncle Vernon coughed. My sister's face drained of color, her glass trembling. What? She whispered, voice cracking. I met her stare, heart pounding. Dad continued, calm but firm. Your brand was failing. Everstyle saved it, jobs, designs, all of it. Carla made it happen. My sister's eyes darted to me, wide with shock, then fury. She shoved her chair back, napkin hitting the floor. You're lying, she spat, storming out. The door slammed, echoing in the stunned silence. Mom tried to recover. Let's not ruin dinner, Gail said, voice shaky, reaching for the pie. No one moved. Aunt Diane stared at her plate. Uncle Vernon muttered something about coffee. I pushed back my chair, ignoring Owen's gentle nudge. I'll talk to her, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Mom protested, but I was already moving. Outside, the November air bit my skin. My sister stood by the porch, arms crossed, staring at the dark street. How could you? She hissed as I approached. You stole my company? I took a breath. Years of her taunts flashing through me. I didn't steal it, I said, firm. Trend Vibe was drowning $2 million in debt, lawsuits, no sales. Everstyle offered a lifeline. You signed the deal. She laughed, bitter. You set me up. You wanted to humiliate me. Her words stung, but I held my ground. I advised from the sidelines. You hid the truth from everyone, bragging while your brand sank. Stop blaming me and own it. Her eyes narrowed, but I pressed on. You mocked me for years, my work, my skills. I'm done with it. Admit you were wrong. She shook her head, voice venomous. You're nothing but a paper pusher who got lucky. I'll never apologize. The words cut deep, severing the last thread between us. I turned away, heart heavy but resolute. Then we're done, I said, walking back inside. Her silhouette stayed rigid, alone in the cold. The fallout came fast. My sister's boasts had caught industry ears. Her big retailer deal, a rumored $3 million contract, fell through when buyers learned Trend Vibe no longer existed. Fashion blogs picked up the story, calling her brand a cautionary tale of mismanagement. Her name faded from Indianapolis's design scene, her social media accounts going silent. She took a job at a local boutique, ringing up sales, a far cry from her runway dreams. Inside, the family shifted. Mom pulled me aside after dessert, eyes soft. "I didn't see your strength, Carla," she said, hugging me tight. Dad nodded from across the room, pride in his gaze. Grandma Iris, sipping tea, whispered, "Told you they'd see." Even Uncle Vernon raised a glass to my sharp moves. For the first time, I felt seen, not as the quiet sister, but as the woman who'd built something real. That night, lying awake, I reflected. My sister's words had pushed me to prove myself, but silence had been my armor too long. Standing up to her demanding truth freed something in me. I'd spent years building Everstyle's success, yet doubted my worth under her shadow. No more. I learned to stand tall, to value my work even when others couldn't see it. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for listening. It's a reminder your worth isn't tied to others' approval. Stand up for what you've built even when it's hard. Share your thoughts below. What would you have done at that table? Your stories